So you know this guy. You know this guy. This guy is the chairman of the World Economic Forum.
Oh,
He wrote that book, The Great Reset. He's one of the guys who looks like Dr. Evil and is actually controlling the world. That's not a... So the people who run the WEF are the people who are really controlling the world. He's one of them. And here's what he has to say about... This is Klaus Schwab. Here's what he has to say about vaccines.
Waves of lockdowns and the stresses of finding work or returning to workplaces have even amplified the existential and often silent mental health crisis. So, what should you do? You, the millennials and the Generation Z, what should you do differently? Most immediately, you are calling for the international community to safeguard vaccine equity to respond to COVID-19 and prevent future health crises. Nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
That sounds like a threat. Nobody will be safe until everybody is vaccinated. It sounds like a threat. And again, there is treatment now. There's called monoclonals. Whatever happened to monoclonals? The reason why the big pharma was able to get emergency use authorization for the vaccines, and we didn't have to go through the normal vaccine approval process, was because they said there was no treatments. But now there's monoclonals, fluvoxamine. Why not Paxlovid or Paxlovid, however they say it? So why are they still doing that? And why is this guy talking about it? The World Economic Forum. And he talked about vaccine equity in there. You know they didn't give the vaccines to poor countries, right? So it makes me think everything this guy and Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci say about the vaccines, it makes me skeptical of everything they say. Why didn't they give the vaccines for free to poor countries if it was really about health and saving things? Why didn't they do that? We gave $54 billion to Ukraine for bombs. Why couldn't we give $54 billion in vaccines to poor countries? Why didn't they do that? I like what Black in the Empire says. Nobody will be safe until we take power away from people like Klaus Schwab. He's the one who wants to have you have a digital ID so then they can turn off your bank account when you don't do something that he likes. When you do something that they're against, they can turn, because you'll have a digital ID. And then you won't be able to travel. You won't be able to get funds out of your bank account. You won't be able to pay your rent. You won't be able to get your medicine. You won't be able to do anything if they say they don't want you to. This isn't hyperbole. This is stuff they're trying to do. They've already done it. They already turned off the bank accounts of the truckers in Canada, eh? Mr. Schwab, help us understand. What's the link between injecting an experimental substance and our mental health? Because that's how he started that off. You remember that? Or are you suggesting to jab all millennials and then we'll all calm down? Have you got no limits to corruption, lies, and manipulation? Then why don't you give a F about vaccinating the global south, says Blue Check Beth. When do you give an F about vaccinating entire countries? When you do give an F about vaccinating entire countries that are too poor for you to make money from, it kind of undermines when you don't give a F. That's it. That's what DGAF. When you don't give an F about vaccinating entire countries that are too poor for you to make money from, it kind of undermines your everybody must be vaccinated to save us all message, doesn't it? Oh, I wish I had that Bill Gates clip of him saying what he said about the vaccines now and COVID. What he said about COVID was that they didn't know that it had a low fatality rate and that it affected most of the elderly. Kind of like the flu, but a little different. That's a direct quote from Bill Gates. I should get that quote. And then there's another one. It's like watching a James Bond villain rant and gloat over the death and destruction that he's caused. This man and his organization is the face of evil in the world. Don't believe me? Do a few searches online. Don't use Google, Bing, or Yahoo. They're the tools of disinformation.
It wasn't until early February when I was in a meeting that experts at the foundation said, there's no way, there's been too much travel without diagnosis for us to contain this. And then at that...
So he's saying that's when he knew they weren't going to be able to contain coronavirus. Well, it has animal hosts. So I would need him to explain to me, how do you contain a virus that has animal hosts? That's what I would ask him. So now here comes the big thing.
At that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. We didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different than that. So that was...
Let me play it again because I do.
Yeah.
Here we go.
It wasn't until early February when I was in a meeting that experts at the foundation said, there's no way, there's been too much travel without diagnosis for us to contain this. And then at that point, we didn't really understand the fatality rate. We didn't understand that it's a fairly low fatality rate and that it's a disease mainly of the elderly, kind of like flu is, although a bit different than...
That's what Mr. Vaccine said. That's what Mr. Vaccine said. So why is this guy saying this stuff? No one will be safe until everyone's vaccinated. Bill Gates doesn't seem to be saying the same thing, is he? Okay, there you go. And why they couldn't get a guy that looked more like Dr. Evil, could they? And I should show you the video of this guy, Klaus Schwab, bragging that the people who come to study at the World Economic Forum are now not only leaders of countries, but they permeate the cabinets of countries all over the world. So they have control of governments all over the world. That was his implication. We're going to Chicago, Sacramento, San Diego, Bakersfield. See you there. Go to JimmyDoreComedy.com for a link for all our tickets.